Greetings. Welcome to Dr. English's Book Lovers Book Club. I'm Dr. English and I teach English. This week I'm reviewing the book The Apothecary by Maile Meloy. And as I said last week, I love this book. This was so much fun. I've read it really quickly. It's about a girl named Janie Scott, whose family, it's been written, the time period is 1952, so it's right after World War II and during the Cold War. And I love stuff like this because it's like about spies and about it's like things that are going on. And her parents have to leave Hollywood, California, because they're writers and they think they're going to be subpoenaed to go before a trial, and they're afraid they're going to have to give names to people. So this is like time in the McCarthy era, when Joseph McCarthy was accusing people of being communists. And it's just really well written. And so that's the start of it. Like she's been being followed by a car, a black sedan. And I love how she uses the language from the 50s. People called it a sedan. They didn't just say, oh, it's a Ford or a Mercury or whatever. It's just a black sedan. And so they leave and go to London, and she knows nothing about being in London. And it's a huge culture shock for her. And she goes to, like a private school, so her parents are able to do that. But the funny thing is that I think is you have to suspend your disbelief a little bit, because her parents let her go and do things all by herself, which I just think in 1952, that was probably true. In 2025, no, there's no way on God's green earth that her parents would let her go by herself on the tube, or go with some boy she doesn't know. So she meets Benjamin in school, and she's impressed that he's the only student who will not get under the desk during the nuclear raid thing. And London is still not really rebuilt, so she's seen some of that too. But he refuses to get under the desk because he just said it's pointless, and it's true, because I remember doing that as a kid. And I remember my social studies teacher in 7th grade saying, you're supposed to duck and cover, duck and cover. She's got the little ditty in there about duck and cover. I remember that distinctly. And but our 7th grade teacher said, duck and cover, put your hand, hit your head between your knees. And he always said, kiss your ass goodbye, which I was like, we were 7th graders and we were like, you live with this ongoing anxiety. And she talks about that too, about you always were worried that we'd just be burned to a crisp by a nuclear bomb. So, and we were not far from Offutt Air Force Base and a telecommunications tower. So here's my 7th grade teacher said, we'll be the first to go. I'm like, yay, thank you for that. I just like, so it was like a walk down memory lane to be thinking about that. But Benjamin's father is an apothecary, and he's got the pharmacopoeia, and it's a book from like 700 years. It's got all this information, and then you find out that these Soviets are after the pharmacopoeia. And they have this plan. There's this other Chinese woman, and even her father is, or Benjamin's father is shocked that it's a woman. He thought the whole time he was communicating with a male in China. And she is there, and she's been taken by this group. It's so intriguing, and it's just so much fun to see Janie get caught up with Benjamin and his father. And Benjamin he has no desire to be an apothecary, but everybody in his family has just taken all this knowledge and brought it down. So there's some fantasy elements to this book, which are fun. And I won't give it away because there's so many fun moments in here where it's just like, oh, fun. So, and it's like there's a reference to the alchemist, Benjamin is poo-pooing the idea of alchemy. And so, but his father is an apothecary, not an alchemist. So I think it's kind of funny. But the same kinds of elements of magic are in it, and I just love it so much. And then there's always the thing about, like, if your people are spies, you never know who they are. And I think that's important for readers to know as they get prepared to read this. It's like, who can Benjamin and Janie trust? And so there's just some really fun things in here about, it's just like what I say, it's just, it took me back to my Nancy Drew days when I was a kid. Like, I loved reading those books because I liked trying to figure out who was the bad guy and how did they go about doing things. And there's a lot of that element in this. It's just a really fun read where you're trying to figure things out. But also you just get caught up in the story and what they're doing. And it's, she does a good job of helping us just suspend our disbelief about the magic part of it. But it makes it so much fun to read as someone who, reading takes you to a different world, and you can break all the rules, and it's just fun. So I don't really want to say a whole lot more because I want to leave it to you to discover all the little magical things, and because you're discovering things right along with Janie and Benjamin that they didn't know. But like I said, the part about her parents and letting her do these things is kind of funny. But they're writers. They were on location to shoot something, and the neighbor said she'd take care of her, even though Janie could smell gin on her breath all the time. It was like, oh, not a good decision on her parents' part. And that in itself is kind of funny too, as the reader, you're just like, oh, brother. So I'm going to read a little passage of this, and it's um, they befriended a gardener who knew something about the Apothecary Society, and this is the two of them they go to back to this gardener because they want to look for this, ask him something, and so. Should we knock? I asked. Benjamin pushed at the door and it creaked, making both of us jump back. The house was silent. Hello, he called again. He pushed the door open and we stepped inside. I don't like this, I whispered. We should leave. A lantern with a glass shield sat lit on a chair by the door, as if someone had planned to take it outside. The gardener's oilcloth coat was hanging on its peg. The table was set meticulously for one, with a placemat, a folded cloth napkin, and a white bowl, none of which had been used. There was a wood stove at the other end of the room with a pot on it. Benjamin picked up the lantern and held it over the pot. Some kind of soup had been simmering there, but the fire had gone out in the wood stove and the soup was congealed around the edges. As I moved away from the stove, my foot hit something on the floor, and I bumped into Benjamin, rattling the lantern's glass shield. The spill of light caught the sole of a rubber boot, which I had tripped over, then a second boot. I held my breath as Benjamin raised the lantern to reveal two legs in wood trousers stretched out on the floor, suspenders over a wool shirt, and then the gardener's gray beard. I thought I would leave you with a little suspense today. And so, really honestly, if I had an opportunity to teach this to like sixth graders or seventh graders in a middle school, and I've been subbing a lot for middle school, because I just really like sixth and seventh graders. Eighth graders, I had one class of eighth graders. It was like all the classes were eighth graders, and I was like, that didn't go as well. And I thought this would be a book I would definitely teach with sixth graders. I would love to teach this book. So this is one. I think it's maybe not for high school, but high school kids could read this in a book club. They would love it. It would be such a just a great what I call brain candy. I've always said that it gives kids a break to have some brain candy to read for fun. And of course, you put it on your shelf so kids have these opportunities to have a little brain candy and a break from their more intense studies. So definitely would recommend it for a book club. I definitely would, if I had a chance to teach it to sixth graders, we would have lots of conversations about differences in culture. There would be some historical references with the Cold War. What does it mean to go from Hollywood to London? So just cultural things that you could also teach too. So yeah, I would do it in a heartbeat if I could, if I was still teaching. So shout out to the sixth grade teachers. If you have a chance, check it out. So you might make that decision. Thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. Next week, I think, probably a month ago, I said I would do Speak. This time I'm actually going to go and revisit Speak. Not the graphic novel, just the regular book of Speak. The graphic novel is really quite good too. And then after that, I don't know where I'll go with I still have a couple more books on my list from fall of 2024 of 38 books that I haven't been able to acquire at the library, but I'm working on it. So thank you again for joining me. I'll see you next week. Bye.